a little bit about the consistency that you guys have been able to have pretty much most of the year. I mean, obviously a few blips here and there, but really every game you guys are showing up and playing pretty consistently well.
Yeah, I think it's the way that our guys prepare. I think during the week we treat everything like a game situation. Every time we take the field, we do it from a huddle or from a break, whether it's practice, it's a Tuesday, it's a Wednesday, or it's a Saturday, no matter where we're playing. And I think just trying to get our guys in the mindset, of situational football, of taking the field, of playing together as a group, and then just communicating and being mentally prepared every single series, no matter first quarter, fourth quarter, no matter the field position, home or away. And I think our guys have done a really good job of working together through that and getting themselves prepared as a unit every single series to go out and try to get a stop.
What type of challenges quarterback C.J. Bailey going to pose this week?
Yeah, I think he's having a really good year. I think he moves around well. He extends plays. He's throwing the football really well right now. He's a guy that we got to try to affect early. And I think, he's played well in every game. It's, his location, seeing it, reading it. He finds the open receivers. He does a good job against man and zone. And we got to try to get him off track.
With Wesley wasn't able to play as much, obviously you think of Obo and Chase filling in and getting stretch yards. How did the two of them look in terms of being able to fill in when Wes wasn't able to do?
Yeah, those are guys that we've played all year. And I think they've done a really good job starting Notre Dame all the way through. And I look at those guys, same thing. I look at them all as starters. We have a deep room there, and those guys have stepped up and played in different situations, different packages, normal downs, and I think all season long we've moved their positions around. Sometimes they're the Mike, sometimes they're the Will, sometimes it's a package where they're an edge, and I think those guys have handled that really well, moving around, playing different positions, and then working together. Sometimes we're moving around which guy's working with who. And we've done that all season. We've done that, it really started in spring football, carried into fall camp. And I think those guys are just comfortable communicating, working together with different guys, working together with different safeties. And I think it's helped them out in the situations now in the season where, this series you may not have a certain guy or, we just got to make sure they're all ready to go.
Corey, going back to facing C.J. Bailey, just applying pressure. It's a point of emphasis every week, but maybe especially this one because of the splits.
Yeah, I think he's talented. I think what they do on offense is difficult to stop, but I think, we got to go out, we got to stop the run, we got to affect the quarterback, and we got to hit him. We got to try to hit him as much as we can early in the game. It's going to be winning up front, winning in the box, winning. I think our defensive line's done a really good job this year of knocking back the line of scrimmage and collapsing the pocket, and that's going to be the emphasis right from the start.
When you are able to get pressure or hits on, as you mentioned, early in the game, what does that do for essentially for your defense, but also the quarterback as he probably processes moving forward?
Yeah, I think that's that's the one thing taken away from the SMU game. Still, we didn't get enough hits early in the game, and that's affecting that position. We just got to always make sure that we're affecting the quarterback early in the game. We can take the run away and collapse the pocket and affect the throw. I think that's something we want to try to do early in the game and as much as we can.
With the King Mesidor, just what's impressed you most about what he's been able to provide you guys this season?
Yeah, it all started, I think, spring football, but right after spring football, the way he's gone about the process of taking care of his body, the details of situational football, his position, being able to play multiple positions for us, the way that he stepped up as a leader on the defense, really right after spring football, during spring football. But I thought right after he really accepted the challenge to pull the defense together, to grow the defense together or closer as a unit. And, I think the way he's attacked treatment and getting back to full strength, and the way he played last week, and it's relentless the way you watch him collapse the pocket and swarm after the football, and how physical he plays up front, going through people all the time. And he's worn a couple different hats, playing different positions, dropping in coverage at times, and I just think he's a guy that's accepted the role, and he's done an unbelievable job with it so far, and looking forward to him continuing to build on that as the season keeps going.
The stand you guys made in the red zone before halftime, where you whipped the ball out and there was a swarm there to jump on the ball. As a coach, how pleased were you with that instance in the game, just as a culmination? I'm sure you're preaching takeaways and fighting till the end and coming up big in the red zone.
Yeah, that was, I think that's one of the bigger plays in the game. You know, they have a 2-minute situation right before the half, and, you know, they come out and we get the pick six on third down. I think to go up 14. And then right away, we're back up again on defense. And that's where, you know, you get the pick six, but now you can't give up the touchdown. And, you know, they drive the field. We have a misfit. And, you know, I think they had 1 or 2 big plays in that series in the run game. And, you know, they drive all the way down. And then we misfit that same exact play like 2 plays earlier. We peak, one guy comes out of a gap, the running back bounces it. I think Damari makes a really good play on the sideline to save the touchdown. And, you know, then they come back, they go to the same play against the same call, and our guys, I think it was Justin Scott, knocks the line of scrimmage back. You know, Mez sets the edge and puts the tackle back into the play, and the running back now doesn't have anywhere to go. And then just the smarts, you know, in that situation, and, you know, to understand to hold the back up and go get the football and pry it out. And then, you know, our guys knocking the running back away from the pile. You know, the one guy that knows the ball's on the ground, I thought our guys did a really good job of getting him away from the ball so that we could recover it and then go into halftime now up 14 rather than 14-3 or 14-7. You know, I thought winning the middle 8 right there really swung the game. You know, scoring a touchdown before half. You know, unfortunately, we gave up a field goal in the first drive of the second half, but then our offense went right back down and scored again to kind of give us that, you know, 17-3 or was that 21-3, I think, at that point. And I thought that kind of changed the entire momentum of the game.
Jacoby Thomas seems like he's always around the ball, always in position to get some takeaways. What allows him to be that type of player?
Yeah, I think that free safety position, you know, we're dropping him down in the box, we're making him in the run fit. Sometimes he's in the post, we're blitzing him off the edge, we're blitzing him internal. You know, he does a little bit of everything. And it's similar to like the way we use that nickel position with Keontae. And, you know, I think he fits that role really well. And I think we have, you know, a couple safeties that do a really good job. I was excited, you know, Dylan did some good things, and Jay Rich did some really good things when he came in later in the game, making plays in the backfield and then making plays in space away from the ball. But I just think he plays very fast. He loves the game of football. You know, he's very talented, and we can do a lot of different things with him. You know, coverage-wise and blitz-wise, and, you know, I think he affects the game with how fast he plays and how confident he is right now within the defense and within the scheme. And, you know, he gets the fumble recovery, and then he has the pick, and, you know, I'm still upset at the pick. He didn't just take it right up the sideline. You know, Louisville thought he had the pick, and he takes off, and a little bit hesitant in this one, but, you know, that's a big-time play in that situation because we got him second and off track. I think he had the sack the play before. He was one-on-one versus the back, and he did a good job winning, and then Bain did a really good job of making sure the quarterback couldn't escape back to the field. You know, he deserves credit on that sack also for what he did from the field side. Got him off track, and then he gets the pick, and, you know, I thought that was a big momentum shift and, you know, helped our guys get a short field and go down and score another touchdown. But I think, you know, the more he plays in that role, you know, and he didn't have spring football here. So I think he's getting more and more confident every week, and it's showing up on film now.
You mentioned Jadis Richard. He's a guy that, you know, coming back from an injury, has some physical traits, has some experience. Is he a guy that can make his way into the rotation? What did you see that you liked, I guess?
Yeah, he's, you know, coming back, you could see it in practice, and now it's just getting more confidence, you know, just getting him more reps. But he's a guy that's a really good football player. And, you know, I loved, it was like the 4th and 8. You know, he comes off the edge, and I think he had a half sack or had the sack with Mez, and you could see the energy from the sideline from everyone, all his teammates getting back out on the field and making a big-time play. Huge play, and, you know, to keep them off the board at that point and kind of put the game away. But, you know, I think he's a guy that we're going to continue to look at getting in the rotation. He's a very good football player, and you know, we're excited to have him back and full go now.
I think you talked about Justin Scott last week, but he's stacked another good performance, and encouraging to see that.
Yeah, I think, like, as you keep, and the defensive line's always the hardest. You know, I always feel like some positions you can plug and play younger guys early, but the development of just playing inside and, playing physical and getting bigger and getting stronger. And you can see it as the season's gone on. You know, he makes a really good effort play against Notre Dame. And then there's a couple games in there where maybe he doesn't quite play as much. But now, like, playing with better technique, playing with better pad level, continuing to develop with his hands. And now the last couple games, he consistently gets better and better. And he's playing with more confidence. He's knocking the line of scrimmage back more. He's starting to go through people. His footwork and his base are better every single week as he has more power now. And, you know, and there's a couple guys up front, you know. But he's one of the guys that, you know, him and Dante, and, you know, now you see Third getting more reps. I think he was in the first series of the game this week, and he's a guy that, you know, I trust him in the game a ton. You know, and he did some really good things early in the game, you know, collapsing the pocket and setting edges. But all those guys are continuing to develop, and I think our coaches have done a really good job with them, getting them ready to be in this position where later in the season you never know health, how many reps there's going to be in a game, or, you know, what's going to happen play to play or series to series. And those guys have trusted the process, and they work at it every single day in practice on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And our strength program's done a really good job of getting them prepared for the situations we're in right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
All right.
Go ahead.
I know, with Keontae Scott in particular, the position that he plays, he's obviously played well. That role and responsibility in your defense when you have a player playing it that well, I mean, can you put into words the value of that, of having a guy play all that's expected?
Yeah, I mean, he has the ability to do a little bit of everything. He, you know, underneath zone coverage, blitz, you know, work internal, work off the edge, and then just his awareness and how smart he is on the field, like understanding what's going to happen, communicating with the safety in the corner and the Mike linebacker, and, you know, just kind of anticipating what's going to happen on certain plays because he's he's got those accumulated reps at this point, and he has a really good feel for the position. And he's a guy, you know, he could be the safety, he could be the nickel. There's so many different roles. You could probably play him at corner. There's so many different roles we could play him in, and, you know, I think he's accepted that role. He's playing faster and faster every week, and you know, I'm excited to see. I think he's going to continue to play even better as the season goes on here.
Was it hard in terms of, if we go back into evaluating him as a player and what he did before you got in terms of fitting into what you guys are having to do?
Yeah, I think with what we do, it's not so much about fitting what we do. It's about finding the best players and then adapting and evolving to make sure how do we get those guys on the field. And, you know, he was a guy you turn the tape on, it was like, how do we get that guy here? You know, and he was a really good player, and, you know, since the day he's gotten here, he's made everyone else around him better. And he's a guy that, you know, just whatever, you know, in the building with his teammates, constantly pulling guys in, you know, constantly getting his teammates better, watching film or at different events, and growing the defense together, and his confidence level and just who he is as a person, you know, I think makes the defense better every single day. And but he's a guy, like, you know, it's not so much what we did last year with the scheme or X's and O's. It's more about, okay, this is a really good football player. Now, how do we get him on the field and allow him to play fast in that role? And that's something that, you know, he's done a really good job of accepting and allowing us to do a lot of different things because of who he is and what his ability is.
Anything else? Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.